our goal now remains the same, and that is to see a strong, independent, democratic Moldova succeeding, on the regional and world stage. The next decade, now the fourth decade of our partnership, and it's digitalization. When I think of the future, what that really means to me is Moldovan kids staying in Moldova. This year we're celebrating 30 years, going back to 1992. And the number of projects, I think since then is an incredible number, 130 since then, obviously covering over 3 decades, which is really extraordinary. I think in terms of thinking about the projects, I think there's a number of areas that we've focused on, things like building the competitiveness of industries, building the competitiveness of agriculture, our work on building civil society, our work in energy, our work in governance, and building stronger institutions. These are some of the, I think, long-running commitments that we've made, and I've seen really, I think, some incredible successes over that time. Certainly one of the aspects in regards to trade, 25 years ago, 2/3 of trade really went to Russia and other CIS countries. And over that amount of time, I think many Moldovan businesses have been able to really diversify and increase the value of their products and reorient that trade. And now 2/3 goes towards EU countries as opposed to Russia, which I think is really a significant a change and improvement. I think the centers of excellence that we've developed, TechWell, Zip House, Fab Lab, Media Core, Art Core, and we just had the pleasure, along with the Prime Minister, Ambassador Logston, to launch Nortec and Belts. These are really amazing collaborations that I think speak to partnership and to innovation and possibilities, and are really exciting spaces that we all enjoy today. I think these are some of the things that really resonate. But those, like these competitive projects, for example, have led to really substantial gains, and I sort of think of it in terms of traditional and new. I think on the traditional side, supporting areas like agriculture, like light industry, wine, these are areas and sectors where Moldova has a rich cultural history, and so it was sort of, I think, a natural fit to help promote those sectors and ensure that really the world gets to see them. I think on the new side, it's really supporting things like the IT, creative industries. These really, I think, speak to the promise and the incredible capacity and skills that Moldova has, and especially their youth. And in seeing the growth in exports year on year, I know, in 2021 alone, 37% increase, even I think more so. This next year is really incredible, and I think it speaks to, and it's a summation of really 30 years of partnership. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think one of the neat things for us, in thinking about the past 30 years, is to do a little reflection. I think our intention there and our goal now remains the same, and that is to see a strong, independent, democratic Moldova succeeding, on the regional and world stage. So that hasn't changed. Certainly the early years were much more focused on really helping, Moldova find its footing as a country and building the institutions that it needed, developing civil society, developing democratic systems, helping to get the economy going. It was really, I would say, more of the basics that we're focused on. and certainly, poverty was much higher in those days of working on that as well. Entering into the early 2000s, I think you start to see a lot of our programs come into focus, in terms of the competitiveness and on the ag side. And it's actually one of the things I was really interested and impressed when I arrived here 3.5 years ago was the legacy of investment that USAID had in particular sectors. And that's something that often is uncommon. But I think you can see, as I was referring back to some of the successes, how that really can benefit. On the competitive side, it's really almost 2 decades of commitment. Same thing in terms of the ag side, where or activities that started in the early 2000s are ones that still continue on to this day. And in the ag side, you see the diversification of trade of products like apples and apricots and cherries are going all over the world now, which is really incredible. I think partnerships, as I mentioned, were key things that really, moving into 2010, which maybe I'm sort of partial because it's closer to my time here, but I think you really see some of the most dynamic time in our relationship, where you see the centers of excellence develop, you see IT really taking off. You see the successes of those industries doing extremely well, and we really focused, maybe even more so than on private sector. I think recognizing that obviously our public sector partnerships are critical, but civil society is critical. But private sector has a huge role to play in the development of the digital IT park, for example, which really allowed so many more IT businesses to come into Moldova, which strengthened the economy, strengthened the incomes in that sector, created jobs. The next decade, now the 4th decade of our partnership, and it's digitalization, which I think is incredibly exciting. It's taking these projects and moving them forward even more to ensure that Moldova can compete across all these industries in a region and world that is getting more challenging, markets getting more difficult, but where ultimately I think Moldova can really succeed. When I think of what I've seen here, it's not hard to imagine a really incredible future. I mean, digitalization, I think, runs across many parts of our work here. Certainly in terms of developing industries that are strong and vibrant and are competitive and create jobs and opportunities. Like when I think of the future, what that really means to me is Moldovan kids staying in Moldova. That's what matters to me. I mean, obviously, I love the impacts on the economy, but this idea is to create and help Moldova have a country where its citizens, its best and brightest, want to stay here. They want to raise their children here. They want to, they see their futures here. And so that's why, I mean, digitalization is important, but I think it also creates opportunities that really interest kids these days, and they can see themselves having a future here. It's also, I think, important to work on the other sectors. It's having an independent media, that provides good factual information to the citizens. It's having courts, and we have a model court program in Ungen and Belt and Edinets that, is a court system that is at an international standard. It's having strong communities that involve their citizens in determining, their development priorities and futures. And, Comunitate Mea is one of our legacy investments that goes back years, that we continue to work with mayors, with community oversight groups that really involve them in making the decisions, in their lives, which I think is critical. It's seeing things like the wine industry, which, I mean, it's already, I think last year they won over 1,200 medals, which is a record. Like 40% of them are gold. That's just extraordinary. But my vision is more and more the rest of the world getting to taste Moldovan wine, getting to take a bite of a Moldovan apple, to come here, hopefully themselves, and experience and see the beautiful landscape, visit a winery, sit in a rural community and make some placenta. I mean, these are the kinds of amazing experiences that I think this country has to offer. So, I mean that's the vision, but I think that's also in terms of our programming. It's what we're trying to achieve, and then just a secure one, a sovereign one, an independent Moldova with an energy source that they procure themselves at the best price on the open market, where they're freed from any geopolitical manipulation or pressure put on by Russia or any other country for that matter. So that's kind of the future I see for it. And obviously, as with EU candidate status, this is really a precursor to being part of the EU. And I think USAID has a big role to play in really supporting Moldova along that journey. When times are difficult, that's when you need partnership. That's when you need your friends close, and that's why USAID is definitely going to be there. And obviously we see ourselves having a huge role to play. I think all the impacts that we are seeing from this brutal invasion by Putin, in terms of trade, in terms of energy, I mean, it's the impacts that are very real here. When Putin is bombing the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, it can turn the lights out in Moldova. I mean, Moldovans feel that. All the trade and the partnerships that Moldova has, they've had to reorient, businesses have had to reorient how they export goods, for example. The energy prices, the inflation, all these things are in many ways impacted or caused by what's happening in Ukraine. Not to mention, obviously, seeing a friend and partner and the people of Ukraine suffering, which is something that affects Moldovans deeply. And I think you saw the way that Moldovans handled the refugee situation with such hospitality, opening their homes, opening their hearts, bringing them in, looking after them, again, speaks to really the generosity of the Moldovan people. So it's, we've had, this is like 30 years of partnership, and so many of these amazing gains that we've made, these are things that are potentially at risk. So I think it's critical for us now, more than ever, to be supporting the areas that we've supported to ensure that Moldovan businesses survive, that Moldovan communities, can take care of themselves, that gains made in media and justice, that those things really continue. When you speak sort of broadly about USAID globally, I mean, USAID's mission is to really be the premier development agency in the world, a catalytic partner that drives development globally. The national interest of the United States is a big part of that. I think promoting the goodwill and the generosity of the American people is important, and then our partnership with countries around the world in terms of supporting their development and resilience. Fitting that into a motto in Moldova, I guess I think of things like, when times are tough, we'll stand by you. Being with Moldova every step of the way. These are the things, but it's about partnership, really, mutual beneficial partnership between U.S. government, the American people, with Moldova. I think that's what it's really been about, and when I think of the activities and the things that we've done, that's really the thing that comes to mind. And this has been an incredible tour for me. I think from really the moment I arrived, I felt almost at home. I think, and it's interesting because this is true with, we've had so many visitors come here, obviously because of some terrible circumstances, but nonetheless, it really has in some ways opened Moldova up to many people to come here, and everyone who comes here, like uniformly, comes away impacted. It's first and foremost, they're impacted by the people. Again, the hospitality, the generosity. I mean, these are things that are so ingrained in the culture, and I think that's one of the things that I thought, wow, this is a place that wants to make everyone around them feel at home. It's in many ways a small community where most of the people know each other, and that's special. I talked a little bit about the landscape. Moldova is a beautiful country. The vineyards, the rolling hills. I mean, I had a chance to ride my bike from the north border to the south border, and I rode from west to east because I just wanted to see and experience Moldova that way. And there's a lot of Moldovan bikers around here that I've had a chance to bike with, and and the wine. I mean, it's sort of, you try not to talk about the wine first, when everyone asks you a question, but it's just so extraordinary. The quality is so amazing, and the stories, the different wineries and how they developed, over the years. So many of them are women-run, brilliant winemakers, and to see like a skill that almost is like in the blood that, goes back thousands of years, and to finally see that, go on a world stage is really something special. So obviously that was wonderful. Placenta, I will leave this place and I will think about placenta because it's delicious. I don't know. It's been a really wonderful tour, a wonderful place for me and my wife to be. In terms of the short term, I mean, obviously, the challenges are great, but the other thing about Moldova I found is just the unbelievable ingenuity, and that the ability of Moldovans to improve their lives and their drive to improve their lives is something unique. And we've already seen, I think, significant gains in the energy sector, where with USAID support, Moldova's been able to diversify where it gets its gas and electricity. They've been able to buy, sell, and trade energy on the regional market. I mean, these are things that I think would have maybe been hard to imagine, even a few months or a year or so ago, and it shows, I think, how fast things can change in a positive way. So I see Moldova making great strides towards EU candidate status. There's a lot of resources, coming in a short amount of time, which, is a great opportunity but presents challenges. But, I think using those resources well, taking advantage of this moment that Moldova has. I mean, just from a U.S. perspective, the U.S. administrator power views Moldova as a bright spot like in the world. And she talks about that along many others in a region where you see a lot of countries struggling, of backsliding in terms of their democracies, to see a country that is going the opposite direction, that is becoming more democratic, which is becoming more transparent, that's having a stronger civil society and media. That's extraordinary. And so I see certainly our support, and you see it in terms of the resources, with the many new projects that we have, increasing in scope and size, that I see our projects and our commitment like having the most impact in the entire 30+ year partnership of our relationship. And I know that excites me, it excites my team, who cannot be more dedicated to really seeing dramatic transformational change take place here.